Jai Gurudev, indeed, the power of these practices is vast, and it's wonderful to see how they can be applied to the characters and themes of the new Pope. Before we wrap up, I would like to dive deeper into how sadhana or spiritual practice plays a role not only in personal growth but also in transforming institutions and society as a whole. We see that both popes are trying to lead the Vatican, an institution with centuries of history, and they are faced with the immense pressure to maintain control while navigating their personal crisis. How can sadhana and other spiritual practices help such leaders connect to the true essence of their roles and transform institutions? That's an excellent point. Sadhana is not just an individual practice. It also has a power to influence and transform larger systems. When an individual engages in deep spiritual practices, their consciousness expands. They begin to see beyond their own limitations and understand the interconnectedness of all beings. This shift in perspective is vital, especially for leaders in positions of power, like the popes in the new pope takes sadhana and its connection to leadership. When leaders cultivate a deep spiritual practice, they develop inner clarity and awareness, which then affects how they make decisions instead of making choices based on fear, ego, or the pressures of worldly success. Their decisions begin to be guided by higher principles such as compassion, justice, and truth. In the case of Pope Pius XIII, for instance, his inner struggle could be alleviated through a consistent practice of meditation, allowing him to see his role not as an exercise of power but as one of service. A leader who practices sadhana becomes a vessel for divine wisdom, which in turn impacts the organization or institution they lead. In the new Pope, we often see how the Vatican becomes a battleground for power dynamics, self interest, and corruption. If the leaders of the church were to engage in sadhana, including regular meditation, breathing techniques such as Sudarshan Kriya and practices like Gayatri Japa, they could collectively shift the energy of the institution. This would allow the Vatican to operate not from a place of control, but from a space of compassion, unity, and spiritual purpose. Sadhana also promotes non attachment. When leaders practice non attachment to power or material gain, they can lead with a sense of true service, which is in alignment with the spiritual principles of many religious traditions, including Catholicism. Both popes, for instance, would benefit from practices that help them detach from the need for validation or worldly success so that they can focus on the higher purpose of their leadership, service to humanity and the divine. This concept of non attachment is fascinating and incredibly relevant to the series. Pope Pius XIII, for example, struggles greatly with attachment to his image, his reputation, and his sense of control. How do tools like Sudarshan Kriya, Trikal Sandhya, and Padma Sadhana help in cultivating detachment, particularly for someone who is consumed by the desire for validation and control, as we see in the series? Sudarshan Kriya is a powerful technique for transforming the mind and emotions. It helps to release mental and emotional blocks, especially those rooted in attachments. For Pope Pius XIII, his attachment to power, reputation, and validation often clouds his judgment and creates inner conflict. By practicing Sudarshan Kriya, he could begin to release these attachments and return to a state of balance. The rhythmic breathing in Sudarshan Kriya helps clear the mind, calm the nervous system, and bring about a deep sense of emotional release, allowing a person to feel lighter and more in tune with their true nature. When we let go of our attachment to external outcomes, we stop seeing ourselves as separate from others and instead experience a sense of oneness. For Pope Pius XIII, letting go of his obsession with control and validation would allow him to approach his role as Pope from a place of true service. Sudarshan Kriya helps him cultivate the ability to respond to life's challenges with wisdom and equanimity rather than reacting out of fear or ego. Similarly, Trikal Sandhya, the practice of offering prayers at three different times during the day, can help a leader ground themselves in the divine at regular intervals. This practice encourages mindfulness and the remembrance of one's spiritual essence throughout the day. For someone like Pope Pius XIII, the habit of Trikalsandhya would serve as a reminder that he is not merely a figure of power but a spiritual servant of a higher purpose. This can reduce the temptation to act out of attachment to status or control. Padma Sadhana, which opens the heart, is also an important tool for releasing attachments, particularly those tied to ego. It's all about connecting to the deeper, expansive qualities of love, compassion, and humility. For Pope Pius XIII, who often makes decisions based on personal pride and the desire to protect his image, Padmasadhana would help him transcend his ego and act from a place of purity. This practice allows the heart to expand, making it easier to let go of self centered desires and focus on the collective good. It's inspiring to see how these spiritual practices can help leaders transcend ego, attachments, and the pressures of power. As we near the end of our conversation, I would like to ask you how practices like Shakti Kriya, Gayatri Japa, and Sadhana can assist in navigating the internal conflicts and crises of faith experienced by both popes in the series, and how can these practices foster spiritual growth and resilience in times of deep personal and professional turmoil. Shakti Kriya is an advanced meditation technique that awakens higher consciousness and cultivates spiritual strength for Pope Pius XIII and Pope John Paul III, who face moments of intense personal and spiritual crisis. Shakti Kriya would help them awaken their inner power and maintain resilience in the face of adversity. It helps break through mental and emotional barriers, fostering clarity and wisdom. The practice would allow them to access a deep source of peace even when surrounded by turmoil, and would help them make decisions from a place of grounded wisdom rather than desperation. Gayatri Zapada, chanting of the Gayatri Mantra, is another transformative practice. It purifies the mind, awakens the intellect, and instills divine wisdom. In the series, we see moments where both popes experience confusion, doubt, and fear, especially in moments of great responsibility. The power of the Gayatri Mantra could provide them with spiritual strength and divine guidance, helping them overcome these moments of crisis and make decisions aligned with truth and higher purpose. Finally, sadhana, whether through meditation, prayer, or rituals like Agni Karyam, nourishes the soul. It's a process of reconnecting with the divine on a daily basis, creating a sense of inner stability and peace for leaders like the Pope's sadhana acts as an anchor in turbulent times. It reminds them of their deeper purpose and spiritual path, helping them to navigate personal crises with grace and equanimity. The consistent practice of sadhana helps them stay aligned with their true selves and gives them the strength to face challenges with resilience. In both popes' journeys, these practices could help them find deeper spiritual grounding, leading to a sense of fulfillment and peace. Despite the external chaos, it would allow them to balance their human limitations with their divine potential, helping them lead not just with authority, but with compassion, wisdom, and integrity. Thank you for sharing your insights and wisdom. It's clear that the practices of the art of living, rooted in ancient wisdom and guided by His Holiness Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji, can offer profound solutions to the challenges faced by the characters in the new Pope. These spiritual tools are not only relevant to the world of the Vatican, but can also serve anyone seeking balance, clarity, and inner peace in today's world. Jai Gurudev. Jagadev, it's been my pleasure to explore these themes with you. I truly believe that the tools and teachings of His Holiness Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji have the power to transform not only individuals but also institutions and societies. May we all embrace these practices in our lives to bring about greater peace, love, and wisdom in the world, Jagadev. Jagadev, thank you once again for your time and for such a thought provoking conversation. We hope that the wisdom shared today will inspire many to explore these practices and apply them to their personal and professional lives. Thank you, Jai Gurudev. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share these teachings. As we have discussed today, the spiritual practices of the art of living are not just tools for personal growth, but also pathways to deeper societal transformation. These tools help individuals and leaders alike move beyond their limited sense of self, leading them to align more closely with their true purpose, compassion, and wisdom. In the new Pope, the characters embody complex human experiences of power, ego, doubt, and faith, and these very tools could guide them toward transcendence. Yet it seems like, despite the many struggles both popes face in the series, these spiritual practices could provide an anchor to help them overcome their inner turmoil. To expand on that, do you think that embracing such practices could help people in high pressure, high stakes environments such as politics, business, or global leadership remain grounded and make decisions with a greater integrity? Absolutely. Leaders in any field, whether it's politics, business, or even in spiritual leadership, face immense pressure to perform, make decisions, and often to preserve their own image. Sadhana practices, including meditation, pranayama, and Sudarshan Kriya, help individuals develop a clear, calm mind, which is essential for making sound decisions under pressure. These tools also enable individuals to detach from the emotional triggers that often cloud judgment and make choices driven by ego or personal agendas. For instance, in the world of politics, where decisions can affect millions, a leader who is deeply connected with their inner self will Lead not out of fear or self interest, but from a space of wisdom and compassion. Sudarshan Kriya, for example, purifies the mind, reducing emotional reactivity and anxiety so leaders can act with discernment and clarity. When leaders take the time to nurture their inner lives through practices like sadhana, they are better able to serve their roles not as egos vying for power, but as beings grounded in service to the greater good. This also extends to those who manage organizations or lead in high stakes environments with regular pranayama, breathing techniques, and meditation. Leaders can manage stress effectively, allowing them to approach challenges with a peaceful mind and resilient heart. Moreover, as organizations often experience conflict, personal ambition, and complex dynamics, a spiritually grounded leader can navigate these with a calm demeanor, making decisions based on principles of justice, fairness, and collective well being rather than fear or competition. In essence, these practices cultivate a sense of awareness that enables leaders to serve their institutions and communities with compassion, integrity, and clarity, much as we would hope to see in the leadership journeys of Pope Pius XIII and Pope John Paul III in the new Pope. It's powerful to consider how leadership, when rooted in spiritual practice, becomes a form of service rather than domination or control. Do you think that if the popes had embraced these practices more deeply, perhaps even as part of their papal training, it would have fundamentally changed the direction of the church's internal struggles and external influence? Jagudev, yes, that's a profound question. In the new Pope, we see that the struggle within the Vatican isn't just political, it's deeply personal and spiritual. Both popes face internal battles that mirror larger questions of leadership, purpose, and service. Their roles demand self sacrifice, humility, and wisdom, yet both are caught in cycles of power and ego, leading to personal crises that affect the institution. Had the popes embraced spiritual practices like sadhana or Sudarshan Kriya, it's possible that they would have experienced a deeper connection to their spiritual purpose rather than becoming ensnared in the trappings of power and control. The church, as an institution, is tasked with guiding billions of people, and the leaders of such an institution would greatly benefit from practices that help them transcend personal desires and align with divine principles. Sadhana would help the popes build the kind of resilience and emotional maturity required to lead with compassion, even in the face of difficult decisions. Pranayama and Sudarshan Kriya would help them release stress and emotional blockages, enabling them to stay clear headed and calm during times of crisis. And practices like Trikal Sandhya would serve as a constant reminder that their work is not just about managing worldly affairs, but is ultimately a spiritual service. This could have led to a papacy that was more attuned to the needs of the people, less driven by institutional politics, and more guided by spiritual insight and integrity. Furthermore, if these spiritual practices were integrated into the training of papal leaders, we could see an evolution of leadership that doesn't just focus on the external symbols of power, but nurtures internal wisdom, peace, and compassion. This shift in focus could ultimately transform how the church engages with the world more as a source of light and guidance than a body driven by control and hierarchy. That would indeed have a transformative impact not just on the church, but on the world at large. I'm particularly struck by how these practices encourage not only personal growth but also a shift in the collective consciousness. It's clear that when individuals embrace these tools, they can change the trajectory of larger institutions and communities. One last question. Do you believe that spiritual practices like those from the art of living can help break the cycle of fear and manipulation that often underpins both personal conflicts and institutional corruption, as we see in the new Pope? Yes, I firmly believe that these practices can have a profound impact in breaking the cycles of fear and manipulation. Fear often drives institutions to act out of self preservation, creating a vicious cycle of manipulation, control, and insecurity, especially in high pressure environments like the Vatican or any position of power. Practices like Sudarshan Kriya, Gayatri Japa, and Sadhana help individuals release the hold that fear has on the mind and heart, allowing them to act from a place of peace and integrity. When an individual practices Sudarshan Kriya, for example, it helps release suppressed emotions and stress, and over time, it cultivates a deep sense of inner peace. This inner peace becomes a powerful antidote to fear, which is often the root cause of manipulation and power struggles. By cultivating this peace, a person becomes less reactive and more responsive, able to think clearly and act from a place of higher consciousness. Similarly, practices like Padma Sadhana and Gayatri Japa work on purifying the mind and opening the heart. They foster a sense of humility and selflessness. which can counteract the ego driven need for control or validation. In the context of the series, both popes could have benefited from these practices as they would have helped them align more with the spiritual truths and less with the power struggles and manipulations that plunged their leadership. On a larger role and scale, when leaders embrace these spiritual practices, they naturally begin to lead with integrity and compassion, and they are less likely to perpetuate the cycles of fear and manipulation. The focus shifts from self interest to the collective good, and institutions begin to operate with a sense of higher purpose. With such practices, if such spiritual practices were adopted more widely, especially within leadership training, we could see a fundamental shift in how power is exercised in society, breaking down the structures that rely on fear, control, and manipulation. This has been such a rich and thought provoking conversation. The application of these ancient spiritual practices in today's world, especially within leadership and institutions, has the potential to create profound change. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and we hope more individuals and leaders will embrace these tools for both personal and societal transformation. Jai Gurudev. Jagadev, thank you for the insightful discussion. It's heartening to see that these timeless practices are gaining relevance in contemporary times. May we all embrace these teachings in our lives and may they inspire positive transformation within ourselves, our communities, and the world. Jagadev, absolutely. Thank you again for your time. And we look forward to seeing the impact of these practices as more people begin to incorporate them into their lives. Jagadev.